how does group therapy at Tunnel Vision help someone struggling with addiction? Um, so I love group therapy, and I think that it's mainly because I'm a nerd and I believe in the dual process. So when our group facilitators construct the group that they're going to be running, because they're given advance notice, like what group topic they're going to have, what time slot they have, and then they have a list of ideas and subjects that I've generated for them that they can draw from, but they have the responsibility to construct the group on their own, pulling videos and quotes and material that will bolster it and keep the client's attention. And that creates a dual process. So, like, if I'm developing a group and I'm gathering information and I'm researching it and I'm pulling material together so that it can be effective, I'm learning in the process. And then when I execute or facilitate that group, I'm it's a dual process in that I'm getting the benefit of running the group and receiving the information and processing it right alongside the client. And so if I'm benefiting and they're benefiting, we heal and we grow and we gain our knowledge together. And that's the big part. What group therapy really does is it creates stronger social bonds. There's an educational component, but education isn't nearly as important as that social connection. So you're developing that social connection with your peers and with the group facilitators, and your dopamine gets a little bit increased. And because it feels good and you're doing good, the knowledge that you're learning is much more likely to stick with a positive experience than with a negative or a neutral experience. So as the social bond is being formed through that connection, finding common ground, the delivery of the information, um, you grow together as a group. And we're social creatures. We have this instinctual draw to be a part of. And group therapy is a really good way to achieve that. And in group therapy, you're always going to find encouragement. And so your peers will encourage you, you'll encourage your peers. Like I've seen it a million times where a client is asked a simple question and everybody else around them knows the answer, even for that client. Like, what's something you're struggling with in the last week that you're having a hard time dealing with? And you can tell, like, they're like, man, that's a good question, and they get stuck. And like they're especially the people in their house will know. They'll be like, what about when your kid called and he didn't want to talk to you? And they're like, oh yeah. And like, so now their peers are like involved in their recovery just as much as they are. And so they get that encouragement. And you're not going to get that in an individual setting. And you're also not going to get that organically very often. So we're able, it happens. It just doesn't happen often enough. And so we're able to get that positive encouragement and those social bonds in group therapy. And we're able to replicate that all throughout the day on a daily basis. With us, it's a little different. We start with gender specific groups in the morning. And then when they come back together with both genders, we get into life skills, which can be a lot of different things. It's not just about jobs, it's also about healthy boundaries and communication. Like there's so much that goes into life skills. Then they have lunch, and when they come back, they do another gender specific group. But the second gender specific group of the day is always geared towards like why it's gender specific. What are some problems that only men face in addiction recovery and even just in addiction? Because there's going to be like sexual trauma things. Men have a higher rate of suicide for a reason. They bottle it up, they push it down, they're always posturing for the people around them. And then with women, they have a lower recovery rate than men. And that's for a reason too. So like the women are able to get with the women and explore women's issues in recovery, and same thing with the men. Go back into a psychoeducational group after that, and then the last group of the day is always going to be some form of mindfulness and meditation, because in it you have a heavy group, then you have like a non really emotional group through the life skills. Go to lunch, you come back, you have a kind of heavy group, and then you process it out with the mindfulness group. So when you leave the facility, you're leaving balanced and grounded and mindful and calm. And we do that with intention. We layer the group types with conscious intention beforehand, knowing that like we're going to trigger some emotions throughout this group process in the day. We're going to bring it down with the groups in between it and a meal break. And then we're going to make sure that they leave calm and centered and inside of themselves and present. And so I don't think a lot of other places do that. I don't think that they structure the groups with such focused intention, where like it's a lot of times it's just like here, psychoeducational group, life skills group, we're doing this, but like it doesn't really matter. They don't close it out. If you were doing an individual therapy session, the last few minutes of your therapy should be your therapist resolving some things, putting a button on some things, and getting you okay before they end the session. That way you're not going out there all emotional, exposed, unboxed. They box everything back up until the next session. And that should be the same thing in the group format.